But yeah, like I said, thanks for coming in. It's really good to meet you and kind of hear a little bit tonight about your journey and all that kind of stuff.
No problem. Yeah, I'm excited to share. This is definitely my first podcast experience. So
really?
Cool.
Tell us a little bit about you.
All right. Awesome. So I'm Miranda Defler. I got into the bodybuilding fitness realm probably 5-6 years ago, and it started out with powerlifting, actually, which most people don't even know because it was so long ago. But I was the type that I was just very competitive, and I needed an outlet. I grew up in competitive gymnastics, competitive cheer, and it was only natural that I just kind of fell into this. So I started doing it, and I just fell in love with like the better every day, pushing myself. But I was like, I do not want to do diet. I don't want to do it. I will eat donuts, lift heavy. And that's where I found my fit. So I did that for about 2 years. Ended up going to 100% Raw Worlds and absolutely loved it. It was a great experience. But after I kind of did that, there was not really anywhere else for me to go. So I was like, all right, let's go after this bodybuilding thing. Because being the competitive type I am, I'm like, all right, now that I have figured out this heavy weights, like let's dive into the diet and see what we can really shape up. Because I did notice my body changing. It was just slow. So it was kind of like, oh, I get to do this and have like a cool physique. But like I knew it could be so much better. And I knew my athletic ability could be better if I wanted to really dive in and get that discipline. But I was like nervous about it. So I found a bodybuilding coach, fell in love with her, started my first off season, and then grew into the Kentucky Muscle was my first figure show. And once I stepped foot on that stage, it was lights out, game over. I'm addicted, love it. And really it's that drive to be better every single day. So whatever I can find that pushes me to go past my own limits, get better, that's where I find myself gravitating towards.
Are you originally from around here?
Yes, I am.
Where'd you go to school?
I was born and raised in Louisville, went to Assumption High School, and then went to U of L for college. Okay.
Kind of being in that Catholic school, I know like sports is such a big aspect of it. Was that like the community from that, or was it more you feel like family that really got you into the sporting world?
Well, like I wasn't a really good athlete at like anything except for like flipping my body. So basketball, I was like D team, soccer, just stood there and watched. Anything with a ball, I just didn't have that like coordination, and my family always tried to like get me to go that route, but it just wasn't. I wasn't built for that. Like I was built for gymnastics or cheerleading, that kind of thing. And I think they really saw that I took an interest in that. So I think the family aspect, because going through the Catholic school system, yes, sports were very big, but I really wasn't on many teams because they didn't have gymnastics or they didn't have cheerleading. So I always kind of felt like I like was an outsider because I would go to school all day and then I'd go to gymnastics practice, and like nobody at school really knew what I did. They were just like, oh, she flips her body like that. It's kind of weird because it wasn't like the normal basketball, softball, field hockey, that kind of thing. But yeah, I think my family really just saw that I took an interest in wanting to excel at something. So they felt like wherever I could, they tried to push me there.
And then going, I guess, to even like the powerlifting and bodybuilding routes, also kind of not the mainstream either. Really.
Yeah, no, for sure. I've always been different, but I'm almost like that too. I've wanted to be different. Like I feel like that's like my superpower, and it's like I remember the first time I told my dad that I was like stepping on stage to do a bodybuilding competition. He was like, "Wait, what? Like." What? I don't understand it. But like, and to this day, he still kind of doesn't really understand it, but he's so proud. And he's like, the second that I saw you on that stage, it all made sense. You have that competitive drive. You have that performer personality. And like under the lights, it's just like a different Miranda comes to life. Like, so it's cool.
What really pushed you to try? You kind of mentioned you did powerlifting, but like really tell us a little bit about what made you want to do it? And then what kind of feelings, like did it unleash any different feelings versus doing gymnastics?
The first time I saw bodybuilding, I was like starstruck. Just seeing the glam, the suits under the lights, like the girls in their confidence. I've never seen anything like that in my life. And it was almost captivating because they were putting on a show. That was their art. And it was beautiful to see. And I knew it was going to take a lot of work, but it didn't scare me. Like, it was like something in me is calling me that, like, I'm going to do that. I don't know when and I don't know how, but that is cool. I want to do that. And so that's kind of how it all started. And like, even when I was in my powerlifting days, like, I knew ultimately I was going to get into bodybuilding. I didn't know when it was going to happen, how it was going to happen, anything like that. But I knew that was like my ultimate goal. So I just knew the powerlifting was going to be a good base for muscle building. It was going to force me to push myself, and just learn myself and learn my capabilities in the gym. So that kind of led me to the bodybuilding. Once I committed to, okay, this is what I'm going to do, it was just like, let's execute. Like, and I'd never committed to a diet before. Like, I don't know where the drive came from, but it was just like, I'm very goal driven. So when I have that deadline of like, this is what I'm going to do, I said this is what I'm going to do, I'm going to show up even on the hard days. I'm going to make the sacrifices I need to do to bring my absolute best, because I can't step on that stage knowing that I left anything in the tank or that I didn't give it my all, anything like that. So I think in the aspect of like gymnastics, there was a lot of self-trust. And in this sport, there's a lot of self-trust and just trusting yourself that you have the tools to make it happen. You have the drive to make it happen, and you can truly do anything you set your mind to make it happen. Now, bodybuilding has forced me in ways that I didn't even know I needed to be forced. I'm forever grateful for the sport because of that.
When it comes to science-backed supplements that taste great, 2NS is your one-stop shop. They truly maximize quality by making their own supplements in-house. With over a combined 90 years of experience, 2NS's team of industry experts has a commitment to research, quality, development, and innovation. The body is sacred, so give it the best. Check out all 2NS has to offer at secondnaturesupplements.com. That's 2ndnaturesupplements.com. All right, guys, we're going to take a quick break here just for a second. Let me tell you about Smoking Gun Coffee. They're a veteran-owned coffee company that strives to produce a quality coffee at an affordable price. They only buy coffee from small coffee farmers around the world with a cup score of at least 85. Each batch is roasted to order for maximum freshness. They also donate a large portion of their proceeds to organizations that help local communities, veterans, first responders, or you can donate to the foundation of your choice at the checkout by going to www.smokingguncoffee.com. That's SMOKIN Gun Coffee. Getting out of powerlifting and going to bodybuilding, did you have any people, like, is there any kind of stereotypes or negativity in powerlifting about bodybuilding that you kind of noticed people having when you made that transition?
Not really. I'm sure there is. I feel like everyone has their opinions. But ultimately I knew it was where I was aligned with and that like my time was done in powerlifting. Now I won't say I won't ever go back. Never say never, because you just don't know. And powerlifting really did hold a special place in my heart. It pushed me for the time that I needed it to. And I like the fact that I could be more flexible on my diet. It gave me a little bit more freedom, but it also, I did learn and was like prioritizing protein a little bit more than I had, because before that I was on like mac and cheese and ravioli kind of diet. There was no protein, didn't understand the concept of it. So yeah, I didn't get any judgment for it, but I'm sure it was out there, but everybody's on their own journey. So,
and having experience in both realms, not to say one is easier or harder, but do you feel like because bodybuilding is so holistic in the sense that it really encompasses every single thing that matters in life, like, within health and fitness, like, do you think that it's maybe a more challenging sport?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I don't want to take away from powerlifting because that is very, very hard in its own right. But with bodybuilding, it's more mental than anything. And I think having mental fortitude is like the toughest thing you can have, because you are controlling every aspect of your life from the moment you get out of bed till the moment you go to sleep. So just having that control and discipline over your life every single day for months on end, all to just look a certain way, like, it has to be so much bigger than just that look. And you have to have that driving force. And you have to know that you're doing it for the right reasons, like, even in those hard moments, because it's so easy in everyday society, if you don't have that show or you don't have those plans picked out, to just say, oh, it's fine, I can just go to McDonald's. And people do it all the time, but having that strength in those hard moments and knowing your why and working through it anyways, and like having that mental sanity to say, hey, I feel crazy, but I'm doing this anyways, and I'm still showing up, and I feel like I have nothing left to give, but I'm going to push a little bit harder. That's a push like I've never experienced in powerlifting.
You mentioned doing it for the right reasons. How do you, especially maybe during like a prep when your mind isn't always in the most normal state, how do you how do you make sure you're always doing it for the right reasons?
I have sticky notes all over on the mirror, because in prep you're looking in the mirror a lot, posing, and really just keeping your mental sharpness. And like listening to podcasts are really good for me. Journaling, gratitude every single day, just staying grounded in that. Like, literally a year ago, I would have dreamed of this life. And so the second that I find myself like in my self-pity, or, oh my gosh, I'm so hungry, why am I doing this? Like, this is so stupid. Like self, like doubts like that. I'm like, a year ago, Miranda would have killed to be in this position. So keep showing up, keep moving forward. And just reminding yourself of like where you've come from, where you're going, and knowing that the work has to be done.
When you start anything and you look a year into the future and you kind of try to forecast what's my life going to be like, or what opportunities are going to be presented to me. And as you continue to like look further and further down the road, it's almost impossible to realize what can change in a certain amount of time if you just stay dedicated to something.
Yes.
It's
insane. And that's what, like, every single day you have a chance to like level up your level of acceptance. And if you do that like 365 days out of a year, like, you look back and you don't even recognize who that person is. And that's a wild, wild concept. I think that just comes from like chasing your passion and like getting good at it, and then making mess ups and realizing like, how can we do better, and just following that passion to be better and keep providing more and keep showing up. So
along the bodybuilding journey, especially when you get started you kind of mentioned going from powerlifting and then really focusing on your diet more. Did you ever struggle with the food, like mentally?
Not in the beginning. It was just like, this is what I'm doing, and I'm committed. I don't know. It was like a switch or something. And then first post show, for sure struggled with food. And I still have my moments of weakness. I still give in, just like every other human. But you definitely learn to deal with it better each show. So I will say that. But when I turn that switch, there's no cheating. Cheating is not an option. So it's like, yes, I may be food focused, but that food isn't going in my mouth until that show is over. So
it's interesting how people, do handle it so differently within the sport, because it's a sport where everybody can do it.
Yeah.
It's not like you have to get drafted to do it.
Yeah.
You can just say one day, okay, I'm going to start training and then do this show.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what I don't think there's a one size fits all at all. I think you have to figure out what works for you. And for me, I have that switch. It's weird too, because me and my coach don't really even talk about like how far out are we? Like we'll talk about shows and stuff, but she'll just kind of like coast me in and just like, okay, all of a sudden we're 9 weeks out or whatever. But it's like that switch was turned on 10, 15 weeks ago, and I didn't even like realize it. I just kind of turned it on, and she kind of saw that things were moving, and we kept moving, and it was like no pressure of like, okay, at 12 weeks out, we have to turn it on kind of thing. It's like it's been on. So yeah, it's wild.
That. And I think it's not necessarily a rare trait, but it's definitely, I feel like, a little bit more rare these days to have the ability to fully commit to something.
Mm-hmm. For sure. I can definitely see that in like today's society, because we all want to make excuses. Like you want to commit, but then you're like, but I've got my birthday, but I've got this. And it's hard. It really is. But ultimately, I think it just comes down to how bad do you want it? And if you want it bad enough and you have that driving force of why you want that, then you're going to make it happen. It's just a birthday. And it's just food for that matter. Like you can have a cupcake afterwards to celebrate your birthday. So it's like it's working through it and just figuring out, finding that passion that's so strong that keeps you showing up, keeps you coming back, and keeps you staying disciplined.
Yeah. And it's interesting what food really has turned into.
Mm-hmm.
It's very important, whether you're a bodybuilder, whether you're somebody who just really enjoys food, like the importance level is I think equally to both people, but it's just like how you view it is so much different.
Yes. Yes.
One being fuel, one being kind of like entertainment value.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's what I just got off stage like 4 weeks ago, and I've had like family members reach out and they're like, have you had a pizza yet? Have you done this? And I'm like, I really don't like pizza, so no, but I have had some treats, so it's okay. I'm living life. Like we're good. But yeah, it's wild. Like the fuel, when you really fuel your body and you feel like your absolute best, you know that you're going to be able to bring your best because you're performing your best, you're recovering your best. And like when you get a taste of that, it's almost hard to like want treats. Like even post show, like I'm like, yes, I want them, but like my body hurts every time I have them. So then it makes me want to not have them. But yeah, I mean, like I said, I was the kid who grew up on literally mac and cheese and SpaghettiOs, and I did not know health at all. So like it wasn't until I started my first like bodybuilding diet that I was like, oh my gosh, this is what it feels like to like feel good, like have energy. And so now being on the other side of it, having like being a coach and having women who come to me and they're like, man, I can't get through the day without 3 espresso shots. Like, what's wrong with me? And I'm like, we just haven't been fueling your body. Let's fuel your body and see if we can get you off of that. And yeah, sure enough, 2 months in, and they're like, I can't believe I feel this good. I have so much clarity. I don't need caffeine. Like, this is awesome. And so, yeah, when you come from a place of like fueling that body, it's wild what you can accomplish, how much energy.
100%. And, whether it's caffeine or a energy drink, pre-workout, like there's all sorts of things that can be enjoyable and they can be good to have in your life if it's something that you like. But to me, it's always like, are you taking that because you like it, or are you taking that because you need it?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think that just goes back to like our society as a whole loves the instant gratification. We post a picture and we want all the likes right away. And that's just how we've been accustomed to handle life. So it's like the second that something takes a little more work, it's so much easier to give up than keep going. And yeah, it's just important to like keep going, because if you keep going, you're gonna uncover new levels of yourself and like get better and live a different life than if we just give in every single time.
We all have this like such a different potential. Mm-hmm. And it seems like everybody, I don't want to say everybody, but a large majority of people live on the same, they live on the same blueprint so often without even like considering what we want to do or like what makes us happy. A lot of times it's interesting. The few people and the few percentage really of people that kind of break out of that and do different things. That's so weird, because those are people we look up to, but it's not somebody that we a lot of times push to be ourselves.
Absolutely. Well, just a little bit about my background. I actually went to UPS right after high school. This is my first job. I was dead set that I was going to buy myself a house. So I was like, I'm getting so many jobs. I worked at Panera. I worked at UPS. And then I had like a internship with a tech company. And I worked all of those jobs, saved up a bunch of money, and I bought my first house at 19. Then I decided like, okay, UPS is awesome. There's a ton of career opportunity there. So that's where I'm going to go. Like, that's a safe bet. I can make really good money really quick. And that's exactly what I did. I honestly thought I was going to be at UPS till I retired. I have an aunt who retired from there, and she's living on the beach in Florida. Like, that to me sounds like a good life, you know? And I got a few years in, and it just was not what I thought it was. And I found myself going through the motions day after day, hating going into work, hating having to clock in. And I was like, what am I going to do with my life? Like, I'm almost stuck here. And COVID hit, and obviously all the gyms shut down. I had just competed at the Arnold, and I was like, oh my gosh, okay, my entire life has just crashed down. I just competed at the Arnold, had such a high, got one spot away from my pro card, like greatest victory ever, and then I come home to reverse and the gyms are closed. What am I going to do? And if you're a bodybuilder, you know that's like, holy cow, that doesn't happen. So we luckily had some equipment, but we had to get creative, make a home gym, and make it happen. And to hold myself accountable, I started putting it out on social media. That led to conversations after conversations of women all over the world. Like, how are you doing this right now? I'm in such a deep hole. Like, I can't do it. My gym's closed, and like, we either make excuses or we get results. And like right now, I've worked too hard to put on a substantial amount of body fat and let this go to the wayside when everyone else in the world is in the same exact position as me. Like, we all have the same excuse right now. Yeah. We either use it or we get better from it. And one thing just led to another. It led to them asking for help. And then that literally created my coaching business. And about a year after that, I was like, okay, I think I've actually really got something, and I love this. Like, I wake up, I want to stay up late, work on it. I want to get up early. I want to work on it. Anytime I wasn't at work, I was working on it, and I just couldn't stop. Like, it was like I'm helping these girls figure out their life and chase their goals. And I never had this going into this community that I've built. I'd never had that, and that was all I wanted for these women. And so 2 years later, after the pandemic, last November, I quit my job and took it full time. I remember going to my parents, and they were like, no, you're not. No, you're not doing that. And because their daughter was at UPS, she was safe. And I was like, no, really, like, I figured this out. I'm going to do it. And this makes me excited to live life again. And this is what I was born for. So I'm going to take the leap. If I fall on my face, I will figure it out. But I would rather die trying than sit here and stay stuck in the same position.
Yeah. Man, that's really cool. Congratulations on that.
Thank you. It was very scary. And if anyone finds herself in that position, you're going to make mistakes. But the biggest thing is you don't stop trying. And you're going to learn from those mistakes. You're going to keep figuring it out. And if it's not the first ideal that doesn't work, like your next ideal will. So just don't give up. Whatever you do, don't give up.
This podcast is sponsored by Smoking Gun Coffee, a veteran-owned coffee company that strives to give back to those in need. Don't forget to use code TWR10 for a 10% discount at checkout. Ready to take your supplements to the next level? 2NS is here to help. 2NS strives to help you attain the highest degree of health and performance. Combining cutting-edge science and the best from nature, 2NS gives fitness enthusiasts and athletes the fuel they need. Check them out at secondnaturesupplements.com. That's 2ndnaturesupplements.com. Yeah. And it's cool, too, that you kind of were able to balance those two for a while until you did, reach a point where it's like, okay, this can be my main thing.
For sure. Well, and it's scary. And you're scared to be a newbie again. And I know that's how I felt, because I was like, there's all these Instagram women out here who have been doing it for years. Like, they've already made it, and like, there's no more room for me. But if you want it bad enough and you're willing to work for it, like, you are different. And I'm a different coach than those women. I'm a different leader. Like, I've created a different community. So like, everybody has something different to offer the world, but they have to be willing to dive into it, figure out what it is, and then channel that.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely like being authentic.
Yes.
Because like if you try to be like these other coaches, then, like you said, what else? You don't really have anything different to offer unless you are like yourself.
Absolutely.
Staying true. But kind of getting back to your bodybuilding, going back to the beginning, like that first prep, there's probably a vast difference between getting ready for a powerlifting show and then, transitioning now and then doing that bodybuilding show. Like, what struggles specifically, you talked about the food, but like what struggles other than that did you face during that first prep that you were just like, wow, I did not really imagine that this would be this way?
I think the emotional control. I did not realize that, like, now it seems so common to me, but I didn't realize, like, when I get hungry, I would be angry, or I would have a short temper, or just that emotional control was, I don't want to say it was like a lot more out of hand, but it taught me a lot in that first prep. Because it's like, I remember I would like make complaints and stuff, but then I'm like in my head, like, nobody's making me do this. I'm choosing to do this. So why should I sit here and complain when, like, my husband doesn't want to hear it? He's not choosing to do this. Like, I'm choosing to do this. And if I want to be a joy to be around, I don't want to be sitting here complaining and bringing everyone else down. So I think just like that emotional intelligence and control, I did not expect to have to work through that. I just thought, I'm going to bodybuild, prep, eat my food, go to the gym. But like that emotional stuff was hard.
Yeah. Did you feel like it was that you felt more of it? Like a lot of times in life, I feel like when we experience emotions, we cover it up with something, whether it's like drinking alcohol, going out to party, eating ice cream or whatever food to kind of cover those emotions up. Do you feel like because you really had to kind of like be bare bones to your plan, that you kind of like experienced the full emotion as it was more?
Yeah, that's a very good way of putting it. I definitely felt like I was more sensitive to it, and there was like no backing out. Like in powerlifting, like, I guess because it wasn't like an everything included, like I could eat different foods, or I could grab a few drinks like a few weeks out, and I would still be able to recover, and nobody was judging me how I looked. But it's like, you have a few drinks a few weeks out, like, no, big difference. Like, that physique is going to show. So just, almost just like the fact that I'm going to be in my most vulnerable state, in front of a bunch of people in a tiny bikini trying to pretend like I know what I'm doing when I've never done this before. So it's just like you're doing something new. It's all encompassing. And just trying to work through that and just believing in yourself. Because people can believe in you, but like, do they really believe in you until you've actually done it? Like, you don't know.
Yeah.
And like, most of the time people are like, oh yeah, I mean, she might do it, but I don't know. And that's really kind of their own self-doubt. And like, they could never do that, or like, they don't want to do that, which it's not for everyone. I don't blame you if you don't want to. Like, it takes a lot of discipline, power, like willpower, and a lot of sacrifice, honestly. So yeah, I think just controlling everything you can in the best way you can, and still living life and not allowing it to take over, because like I said, it is all encompassing. It's very easy to get wrapped up in your own world and not realize everything that's going on around you.
Yeah. And being a coach as well, you know, how does that really, you know, tie together?
I think it's been different. I mean, obviously my first two preps, I was not a coach, so I did not have that extra layer on it. And this prep I did. And I think it was such a blessing because I had to lead by example. I had to show up, and those women count on me every single day to give them my all and get them better. And just knowing that like I have a team that backs me, it has me showing up completely different and believing, because I've seen the transformations they've made, and it makes me want to show up even better and keep figuring out my flaws, keep figuring out my weaknesses and overcoming them, and not letting that doubt. And then it also makes me want to be more vulnerable and share what I am going through, because they're going through the same exact things. It may not be at the magnitude, it may be in a different aspect of their life, but there are things that they're struggling with every single day that if I can figure out how to work through and teach them, then my job is done. And they're learning and growing. And ultimately, that's what my purpose is.
And like, you know, whenever you work with people too, I feel like you learn more about yourself. Mm-hmm. And what do you think you've kind of, because you are like helping someone else, what do you think that you've kind of been able to apply to your own bodybuilding because of that?
Dealing with failure. Because I'm always so good with talking them through how to deal with failure. But when it comes to me, I'm like, I'm not allowed to fail. What are you talking about? Miranda, no. But our failures literally teach us our biggest lessons. Yeah. So just not allowing that failure to deter me, stop me, and just know, okay, it's not my time. We're going to keep showing up. We're going to make it our time. But that's going to require more work, more growth, more showing up. So, yeah, I think just trying to handle my failures with grace and showing myself like, hey, you gave it your all and it still wasn't good enough. And that's okay for today. But pick ourselves up and get better.
It's interesting that we can, a lot of times in life, we can give such great advice, but we can't take our own advice on whatever it is. Do you feel like having a coach is also beneficial in that way?
Absolutely. Because going back to what I said earlier, we are our own biggest critics, and we have those doubts and they sink in. And if I didn't have a coach to keep my head on straight, I couldn't do it. I couldn't. I would eat myself alive, and I would get trapped in the, I'm not good enough, I can't do this, I'm never going to be with these girls. Whatever song is playing in my head. And so I was just talking to my girls earlier on a team call about how our self-talk just goes in loops, and we don't even realize what we're saying to ourselves, but it's so, most of the time, negative, just because of the environments that we're in, and I'm not worthy, I can't do this, and that's the actions we're going to take to follow suit. But it isn't until you have somebody who believes in you that you can truly believe in yourself, and you can do the work it takes to believe in yourself. You can keep executing even when you feel like you have nothing left to give. And yeah, just noticing those voices and turning them around to be positive. Remind yourself like you can do anything you set your mind to, but it's going to require work.
Yeah. And kind of digging to like the core of, you know, that self-belief. Where do you think that comes from? You know, your coach in the moment, but like, where do you think that started for you? This idea of like, I can do powerlifting, I can do bodybuilding, I can like do my own business. Like, where did that all start for you?
I don't know. I guess when I was little, I've always been very, very independent. I don't want anyone to like do anything for me. Like, I would rather fall flat on my face and figure it out and like get better and teach myself how to do it. I don't know. I mean, I saw my dad growing up. He was a business owner and everything. He kind of just told me like anything I could do, if I worked hard enough, I could have it. And that was kind of my life. Like everything I wanted, I worked really hard for and I got it. And there were certain things that were just weird. Like, I was 8th grade class president and I had never taken any interest in politics or like student council or anything. And all of a sudden, like come 8th grade, you know, usually those kids start out like 3rd grade. They're like vice president.
Already campaigning. Giving pieces of candy out.
Yeah. And I was like, I'm going to go at this with all my might. And I did. And I won. And I was like, wait, what? Like, this is crazy. But it just proved to me at a young age that if I was willing to put the time, the effort, and fell a few times, like I could get back up and I could figure it out and make it happen.
Yeah. And that idea of, you know, if you work hard, you can achieve things. It's so crazy now because that's being like pushed back against in our society. If you say that, it's almost like, well, you must come from like a rich family, or you must like be, you know, you must have the opportunity handed to you.
Yeah.
You know, but if you look back at like the generations before us, you know, we have things pretty good now, like for a lot of people, but like people back in the day, like it wasn't always like this. You know, they did have to work hard. They did have to take chances and take risk and lose and fail and, you know, go broke and climb back. And it's crazy that for some reason that idea of like if you work hard you can achieve things is being attacked like it is.
Mm-hmm. It is super interesting. But I think the biggest thing to realize is like we have more opportunity than we've ever had in our lives. So if you take that hard work paired with those opportunities, like that's just you getting ahead and getting more ahead and getting more ahead. And eventually you separate yourself from almost those people who are trying to stop that and trying to tell people to not work hard because you're focused on better every day or positive vibes or whatever you're focused on. Like you're not going to see that. You're not going to hear that. You're kind of going to just tune that out. So I mean, that's why your circle is like so important and people who empower you to be better and push harder and not take things for granted.
Even having like access to a phone is like so much more opportunity than 99% of, you know, the human race has had over, you know, its time as a species. Like we can connect with pretty much anybody, even if they don't, you know, respond to you back. Like you can try to talk to people. You can see what people are doing and learn from what they're doing in a free way. You can, you know, just having access to like search engines and having access to like how to do videos. Like, you know, the opportunity really, it's in the palm of most of our hands nowadays. And people, you know, because they use it for entertainment more, it's not seen as that.
Absolutely.
It's definitely like a thing that it's kind of a double-edged sword, really, the technology, because it has this potential to be so beneficial.
For sure.
And you can, learn anything from it. You can learn how to get healthy, learn how to go through school. And I mean, I personally wouldn't have gotten through several classes in high school and college without like Google and YouTube, but you can learn all this kind of stuff, or you can just sit on it and watch Netflix on your phone all day, or, you know, scroll through social media without a purpose all day. And it's kind of sad to see how we have used it versus how we could be using it.
Absolutely.
You mentioned at the beginning how bodybuilding, when you got on that stage and it was like, it's all over from here. Like, you know, this is something that I really love. But you also mentioned how it's a, I'm forgetting the word it's very exposing, really. It's kind of how you said it. Like you're getting up on stage, especially when you do it compared with other people, and people are judging you, people are watching you. How did that did it really affect you at all?
I don't know how you could go through this sport and it not affect you. Because ultimately that's like where we place our worth at the end of the day. But the thing is you have to like come back to reality and realize, did you do everything in your power to be the best version of yourself on that day? And if that answer is yes, then you cannot let that dictate how you feel about the package that you brought or your body. Like, and the thing is that I always try and shift the perspective of like, how grateful am I to have the health to be able to do this? The mental toughness to push through the hard days, the support to do this, the freedom to do this.
Yeah.
And back when COVID took away those shows, like there was one show. There was a few shows before the Arnold, but the Arnold was really like the biggest show. I mean, we were driving up there and we didn't even know if I was going to step on stage. So just having that experience and going through those raw emotions of, wow, I just prepped through the holidays. I give up Christmas with my family and I don't even know if I'm going to step on stage. And I just went through this hardship on my body. I think that took a lot of perspective and gave it back to me to where no matter what happens, if I gave it my all, then I can't be upset with what so-and-so thinks about my glute ham tie or whatever it is. We're all genetically born differently and our bodies are going to look different. But if my body is the best that it's ever been and my physique's the best it's ever been to that point, then my work is done. But I think that's the beautiful thing about bodybuilding is it's ever evolving and you're never at a final package. It's like even Miss Olympia, she still has weaknesses. She still has things to improve. And like how lucky are we to have that never ending chase?
Yeah.
It's exciting.
Yeah. It's like you learn something, how to do something like optimally for your body. And then 6 months to a year later, your body changes. So you have to kind of relearn like, okay, maybe this food is reacting differently with my body, or maybe this, you know, this exercise isn't as effective as it was, or whatever. You know, it's a constant
battle. And then
battle.
like posing, you throw that in the mix, and like your posing changes, your flow changes, the way you carry your body changes, like everything. It's wild.
Yeah. Does it feel addicting?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It seems like it would.
It's almost like a rush of. Well, I mean, I think as humans, I think we have addictive personalities. It's with whatever we can get our hands on. We want to get addicted to it. Like we have that drive. So I think it's just channeling that to something conducive and something exciting and something that empowers others to be better kind of thing. And I'm thankful this is my addiction. So
yeah, no, I think you're right though. You know, you look at anybody really in the world, whether you're addicted to watching TV or you're addicted like Elon Musk to just building crazy businesses, you know, going to Mars. Like it really is like everybody has their own addiction.
For sure.
It's crazy. Does it feel like, you know, being in bodybuilding, it's the same thing kind of over and over again in a lot of ways. But does it feel, because it kind of like is an addiction, that you just want to like do, want to like push it harder, but sometimes, like just stay on track, even though, hey, I want to go a little bit harder. I want to maybe eat a little bit different or less, like, or more depending on what time it is. Like, does it ever feel like you want to push harder, but you shouldn't, because like that addiction is like, I want to be the best. I want to be the best. But the plan says do this, but I just want to maybe do one more rep, or I just want to do, 200 less calories today, even though I know I shouldn't. Does that ever pop up in your mind?
Yeah. But I feel like for bodybuilding to be my best, I have to fall in love with the monotony of the daily task. And it's like I have to be very rigid about, because I know that stuff sounds exciting, but it's like almost a quick fix, because I know that's not going to be conducive to the end goal. So if I constantly push my cardio more and more and more, then my body's going to adapt to that. And then when we go to start prep, it's just, we're adding on more. So it's like, it's not setting me up for the long run when I am cheating the plan like that. So I know there's like a method to the madness, and that's what keeps me sane. And I focus on every single day, did I check my boxes to the best of my ability with the boxes that I've set for myself?
I'm kind of talking about kind of the local community, and me just kind of really getting into it here within the last, I don't know, maybe 5 or 6 months more. What has it felt like to you? The bodybuilding community here in Louisville and here in Kentucky, like what does it feel like compared to like when you do go somewhere else?
I think the bodybuilding community here is awesome. I feel like we did kind of like die out with like COVID and events canceling and stuff, but I have loved seeing like posing clinics come back, and just like some older bodybuilders that I grew up watching. Like before my first show, I was like, oh my gosh, they're a local bodybuilder. That's so cool. And now just like everyone coming back into it, I think it's cool. And I think there's such like a mutual respect. It doesn't matter what division you're in with bodybuilding, whether it's men's open bodybuilding or women's bikini, women's wellness, whatever it is, there's such a level of respect, because they know what you're going through and you know what they're going through, and nobody has to say it. But we all know what this sport takes. It doesn't matter if it's your first show, your 16th show, like everybody has their own level of hard that they have to push through to get to that stage. And that's a cool level of respect that it's like almost earned.
Yeah, and it is interesting how like whether it's your first show or you're stepping on the Olympia stage, the process is like very similar. Mm-hmm. And you also have all these different kind of avenues to go down. Like how do you want to shape your body?
Yeah,
and even within those those different ways to go about it, it's still so similar, but you get these like different results. It's one of the like most unique sports, I feel like, and I say it all the time, but I feel like it's even more than a sport. It's like a lifestyle.
Oh, absolutely. And that's what I think the competitors who are in it for the long term, they understand that it's a lifestyle. It's not just like that one and done. Because, I mean, to be honest, I kind of came into this sport thinking, oh, I'll just compete once. It'll be a bucket list item. And like, I mean, I told myself I was going to give it my all, but I did not think 5 years later I would be sitting here. Like, and just 6 competitions later, chasing a pro card, like stepping on a national stage. Like I didn't foresee that when I first started out. Like, I'm just going to see where this takes me.
Yeah, just something to try.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just a life event, life adventure.
Yeah. And now it's like, if I do go off my diet, like I'm craving my diet. I'm craving that good food. I'm craving getting back in the gym and like finding my flow again, because I don't feel my best when I'm like that. I don't feel like I have the mental clarity. I just don't feel like I'm showing up as the Miranda I want to be. And then those self-doubts that I was talking about, they come back 10 times harder. So
yeah. I was talking to Savannah Sharp, and she kind of mentioned like, you everything you do, you remember on that stage. Like every every decision that you've made, maybe even just half of a point of a percentage in the negative direction, you remember. And like you think, if it was only for that thing I would have done different, would I be in a better position? You know, and I can't imagine any other sport really being that way. It's like in basketball, if you say, okay, I'm going to sit here until I make, 100 free throws and I'm going to leave. If you really actually only made 99, you're probably still going to be in a pretty good position. Okay, I know I did my free throws for the day.
Yeah.
But in bodybuilding, it's like, if you eat X ounces instead of this other ounces of meat you're supposed to have, or this many grams of this instead of that many grams, like that done day in and day out is so much different than only shooting, one less free throw per day. It's just the stakes are so much higher.
Yes, for sure. Especially because the body is like so sensitive. So it's like if you made that mistake and you know that, it's going to display on stage, and it may not even be in your physique, but you're going to have that doubt, and you're not going to be that confident person you desired to be because you knew you checked the boxes for however many days or whatever. So yeah, it's interesting because I know I made like a posing mistake, and I was like, man, but I practiced every single morning. Like I don't feel like I could have practiced more, but like, what if I could have fixed it on stage? Would that have done the trick? And you can get lost in that game all day long, and it's hard, but in that moment, I knew I was giving it my all, and looking back on it, I'm like, okay, that's what I got to work on even harder for next time. So,
and talking about that, like, what do you feel like has been something that you've really improved on to kind of take your bodybuilding career, bodybuilding journey to that next level of, your first show, you're just getting into it, to, hey, we're going for the pro card. Like what has been enhanced?
I think for sure my muscle maturity. I think we definitely brought more size and just more density, and I just need more time to continue building. But we have definitely enhanced my shape and my balance. In the beginning, I really struggled with getting my legs lean. I still struggle with that, but we have gotten them better. And we're going to keep building to get them even better.
It's so hard to just be like, follow the plan, based on these things, this is going to work. It's so hard to do, especially in a sport where it's your body. And, anybody who's ever made a physical change, you're like the last person to see anything that changes within your body.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I feel like this past prep, I did that 6 weeks, like no weight change. Really my clothes weren't changing, so I was kind of questioning everything. But we were definitely tightening up, and my coach was like, you're good. Like, and I was constantly asking my husband, like, is she crazy, or am I like actually changing? Like, I don't know. And yeah, you got to trust that you're in the best hands possible. And I mean, that can only be built through just going through the motions and trusting that it worked out the first time, it worked out the second time. Yeah. You're going to keep learning. And yeah, just pushing harder. I think that was what kept me. I was like, listen, like, this is in her hands. If I give it everything I've got, I have no choice but to succeed. She's not going to set me up for failure. So
being a coach, though, and having a coach, mm-hmm. How hard is it to be like, it's in your hands, because you obviously trust someone, but at the same time, it's such a weird relationship, because what it feels like to be the coach. What it feels like to be like, just do these things, follow it. It'll work out. But at the same time, in your own experience with a coach, is it hard sometimes, or do you ever have like a moment of doubt where it's like, I could do this better myself, or like, I don't, maybe they don't understand like what my body's feeling, what kind of thoughts like cross your mind as far as like having the knowledge and the experience, but also letting someone else, handle it?
Yeah, that's tough. I've definitely had like thoughts like that because I feel like that's like human nature to have those thoughts. But at the end of the day, she's been doing this a lot longer than me. And I mean, I think coaches need coaches too because it takes the guesswork out of it for me. And if I sit there and overanalyzed every single thing that she did, I would be using so much brain power to deal with that versus my clients and where my support should be. And when I let her do that work of like, okay, this is my training, this is my macros, it's all figured out for me, like then I can go execute, be my best, and just check those boxes. And that's all I have to do. So it's almost like a cheat code because I don't have to second guess everything and I don't have to question everything. And I know it works because I've done it time and time again. So just trusting the process, whatever that process may be, that is part of the process. And if you don't trust the process, you're going to be stressing so much that it's not working, that the process is probably not going to work. So just controlling everything you can and controlling your emotions with it is
part of
it.
Yeah.
Yep.
And having like a list of things to do, whether it be, looking at your workout or whether it be looking at your diet, even if you love what you do, even if you love training, even if you love what you're eating, it's still hard,
Absolutely.
And I think it's such a unique gift and curse that in bodybuilding, we know how to do it because it's hard. Like it's so hard, but we know what to do. In life, it's so hard, but we don't know what to do. But if we did know what to do, it just makes me like wonder how many people would be paralyzed in fear because like to get to where you want to be in life is extremely challenging. But most people just like, I would say nobody really has like a plan with, step A to step Z. And this is, if you take this road, you'll be successful. But some people set out on that road anyway. But if they had, I feel like if people, had like a blueprint the way they do in bodybuilding, maybe even less people would be successful because like you would look at the plan and be like, this is going to be so hard. Like this is going to be so hard. I don't even want to embark on this journey.
For sure.
So it's kind of that dichotomy of like in bodybuilding, you have the plan and you know what to do. So you get to see how hard it's going to be, in life. Just imagine like having that layout, that blueprint of like, okay, you're going to, go to school. Like it's kind of like laid out for that as a kid. Like you go to school, you're going through the grades, then maybe go to college and then maybe get like an internship. And then, you got to choose what job you want. And then from there, it's kind of like, okay, what steps do you do next? And a lot of people kind of get stuck in like what we were talking about before, kind of going through a blueprint of, just what everybody else is doing. But like I think it's just unique to have that in bodybuilding or in a lot of sports, I guess, and just like a kind of a more of a roadmap of how to succeed.
That is interesting because in bodybuilding, you like know it's coming, but you don't know that far ahead. Like you don't know how your body is going to respond in those last few weeks. And if you did, would you still do the same things you did in the beginning, or would you pull back and like get a little nervous? Because I tell you, we had to dig deep for this last prep, and I've never had to dig that deep, and I didn't even know if I could handle it. And when that plan came over and it was like those updates, I was like, I'm gonna die. Like literally. So I'm like, yes, I had that plan, but if I would have gotten that plan 6 weeks earlier, it would have scared me too much. But it's like bodybuilding is a gradual increase of what you can tolerate. So it's like at the same time, that's life too.
Yeah.
Like we're constantly pushing those limits of like, what can you handle? What can you handle? So just trying to not think about like step 100 when we're only on the first few steps. And I think that's where a lot of people get caught up in the fitness journey. They come into it and they're like, I want to lose 50 pounds or whatever their number is. And the second that doesn't happen in the first month, it's not worth it. And we're not, as a society, we're not conditioned to just make lifestyle changes. If we would just take, instead of sitting on the couch for 10 minutes after work, if we would just take a walk, that could literally change the way you do things.
Yeah.
The way your kids do things.
100%.
So I think it's just like focusing on more of the little things and the little steps ahead instead of like that entire roadmap of the shortcut to success kind of thing.
Yeah. Go into a little bit, like what made you have to have those, that kind of increase, that what you were talking about with your prep, you know, the big change that you would fear.
I mean, we just weren't getting lean enough.
Okay.
And I was running out of time ultimately, and I knew I was mentally tougher, and I knew I didn't come this far to only come this far. So it was like my coach kind of asked me, we're at that point where it's like a co-partnership kind of. She trusts me. I'm a seasoned athlete. And she was like, can you handle this? Like, do you want this or do you want to stay at where we're at? And I have my coach and my athlete brain going like, okay, so if I push harder, I might not be as stressed if I do this. And I'm like, okay, really? I don't want to push harder because then I would be less stressed. And I'm trying to like make that happen. But I'm like, no, I know I need to push harder. I know this is my sign. It's going to be uncomfortable, but it's going to force me to bring out the detail that I need to bring out. And like I said, I hadn't come this far. I hadn't made this many sacrifices to leave anything on the table.
Yeah.
So if there was an option to push harder, that's what I had to take. And I knew that. So we took it, and it still didn't end how we wanted it, but hey, I learned a lot and I forced myself to level up. So
it's kind of going back to like, do you want to live in that moment of
what if?
Yeah.
What if I
like
would
that
have
regret.
taken the easier route? Yeah.
Yeah. You know, the discomfort, you can either have that discomfort for a short period of time or that, you know, regret or that what if or forever really. Because as much as like you could always do another show, but you'll never be where you were. You'll never have the, you know, that moment back, that year back, that show back. Mm-hmm. So it's, yeah, I think it's tough. And then, you know, that all ties back into what you just said. Like we didn't get what we wanted to get, you know, so you push, you go hard, and then you still, you know, you don't have the result. And I think that's probably it's got to be the hardest part of bodybuilding, because it ties back in like you can work this, you know, similar to the same way that like the best people are doing it, the best athletes, and you just aren't going to get the results necessarily. And I think that's just such a, you know, it's true about life, but it shows more, I think, in bodybuilding and in sports in general, just how some things are out of your hands.
Absolutely. Well, and I think it kind of goes back to like everybody can tell you you're good enough, but if you step on that stage and it's not good enough, then it's not good enough.
The reality kicks in.
Yeah, you have to live with that. And I think the only way to live with that is to know that you gave it your absolute all. That's why in that moment I knew I had to pick the harder option, because I couldn't live with that regret. And that is like one thing I just don't want to live with, because what if I would have? Then that's constantly, and should I just stop here? I mean, that was my chance and I missed it. Like, how do you live with that? I don't know. But I know that I gave it my all, and that's what it was. And the time will come, because I'll keep showing up. So yeah. I think if you just keep showing up, keep figuring it out, you will eventually it will be rewarded.
Yeah. I think consistency is the, you know, maybe behind genetics is the most important, most powerful thing in anything.
Yeah.
You know, it doesn't matter if you're bodybuilding, it doesn't matter if you're running a business, doesn't matter what it is. Like, because most people, you know, they'll put in enough time to get started, and they'll put in enough time to do a little bit of the work, but, you know, something happens in life, or it gets hard, or it's, it's not as fun as you thought it would be. Something happens, and then you can really beat out most people by just sticking with something long enough.
Yep. Well, and I think it's helpful to see the good in everything. And that's what, like, going back to the whole, like, failures thing, I struggle with failing and not being good enough. But it's like, what can I learn in that moment that propels me forward and keeps me hungry to still show up? Mm-hmm. And like I said, this prep was the hardest I've ever had to dig, the most I've ever learned. Just the most support I've ever gotten, like, just showed me, like, how many people were really in my corner. That's a cool thing to see, because they didn't care if I won. Like, they were just proud of me for showing up, and they were proud of me for sharing that journey and, like, being real and knowing that, like, I had hard days and I was still showing up for my team to help them through their hard days.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, it's a great community for sure. Feels like so much support. Mm-hmm. Just a good group of people in general.
Absolutely.
So, where does it, when you look to the future, where does bodybuilding, where does it not necessarily end for you, but, like, where do you see, I'm getting out of the sport, and I'm just going to focus on coaching, or I'm just going to focus on, some sport, some aspect of it without being an athlete?
I really don't know. I love this sport so much right now. I don't know if it will always be like that, but I love the avenue it gives women specifically, just because that's who I work with, but I love the avenue that it's given other women to chase their dreams. So even if I'm not involved, I think with coaching, I would love to get more competitors. I have a girl stepping on stage in 4 days, and so freaking excited. She's out in Texas. We're flying out to Phoenix to go see her step on stage for the first time, and just seeing her journey from ground zero, never tracking a thing, to getting on stage 8-9 months later. Like, it's been incredible to watch, and that's where my true passion lies. So I can't see myself, if I'm not competing, I'm definitely going to be backstage. So I don't know when I'll get out of it.
But it's just kind of, like you said, a cool thing to be a part of, for
Absolutely.
Sure. Even from just getting to talk to people, it's inspirational, really, to my own life and to my own fitness. I've got a little bit deeper into, I don't want to, say I'm bodybuilding, but I've gotten deeper into, pushing harder on my training and really focusing more on my diet and things like that, just to optimize, because I'm always somebody who wants, like, another challenge in my life and something to, not necessarily just say I've done it because I want to say I've done it, but kind of going back to, like, just following what you're passionate about, I think.
Yeah.
It's really interesting. But
when it's kind of like, it's cool to be able to relate to people in that aspect. So it's like trying different things just to know what it feels like.
Yeah. Put yourself kind of in somebody's shoes. Yep. And really see what it has to offer.
For sure.
Bodybuilding has, I think so much to offer, as far as, physically, of course, you become like a different version of yourself. You become maybe stronger, you become bigger, whatever. But mentally, I think, is where you see so much, because you're building discipline, you're building skills that translate into, like, business or into your job. Being able to structure your life and have time management and prioritizing things, like all these different skills that go far beyond just, like, the pump looks good.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I think so many people get into it just because they want to look good, but then they realize how much better they feel, how much more optimally they're, like, going through their day and just organized. And yeah.
A lot of benefits, for sure. I really do appreciate you coming on. It was really cool getting to talk to you and to learn more about you.
For sure. It was super cool to share. So thanks for having me. I'm honored to have this opportunity. I've never, like, sat down and kind of given my story. So
it was really cool.
It was cool.
It was great. And if you want to share your social media, your coaching information, like, you can go ahead and do that.
Absolutely. So my Instagram is miranda.defler. And then our Instagram team page is Impact Fam, and that's MPACT and then Fam. Also, I've recently gotten into YouTube, so that's on there. YouTube is Miranda Defler. And yeah, that's all about me.
Awesome. Well, like I said, I really appreciate you coming into the studio and getting to meet you in person. It was really cool.
Awesome. Thank you.
All right, thanks.